I was interested to hear what you're saying. Basically, what I want to know is, for all of us who we don't have the science, you know, we try, we read stuff, and at the moment, because of this turnaround by a load of people saying, hey, nuclear is actually not as bad as you think and all the rest of it, we've got a debate going on. Now, we can believe, I can think, well, I'm anti-nuclear, and I am for a load of reasons, even if it's just a relatively toxic, I'm against it. But I don't know for sure. It's like, I want to believe that, this is what they say, you want to believe that, but actually here's the reports and they contradict that. Chernobyl, this didn't happen, there isn't leukemia clusters, all this. I read this in the papers, you know, from people whose research on other issues I've trusted. So, on the other hand, we say, well, yeah, but they would say that because they all believe in nuclear power, we can't trust them. Is there what's going on there? And is the data that you're talking about actually, like, can we go online and see it? And, you know, how is it that people like George don't see what you're seeing?
Okay, well, if we're going to talk about George, let's talk about George. If he's the person they're talking about, George actually doesn't know anything. This is the problem with George. George is a reporter, essentially. And George is coached by a chap called Malcolm Grimston, who was his chemistry teacher at Stowe. Okay? Malcolm Grimston is the main psychological operations director, if you like to think of that. If you imagine the nuclear industry, you know, rather like Winston Churchill in the war, it's some kind of operations room pushing things around. But Grimston is the boss. He's the guy who organises. He was taken on board. He's got a degree in psychology from Cambridge, northern guy he is, and I've known him for many, many years. And he and George are an operation. Now you have to make up your own mind about why it is that George suddenly turned around at this particular time. My own belief is Fukushima was such a blow to nuclear expansionists that they had to bring out somebody who was like a card that they'd had up their sleeve. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I think that George probably is that card. As far as you believing research, actually I have to tell you that Grimston and George and none of these people have ever done any blooming research, okay? If you look into the peer review literature, if we're going to go there, you know, and actually that's what they say, we should all look at the peer review literature, and I'm not too sure about that myself, because a lot of stuff can't get into the peer review literature. And a lot of people who do this research get rubbished and kicked out of universities, like my colleague, Olle Johansson in Stockholm, and like me actually, were kicked out of the Karolinska Institute last year. But even so, we have managed to get, my colleagues and I in the ECR, in the European Committee, have managed to get probably between us maybe hundreds of research papers into the peer review literature. Whereas George has never written anything in the peer review literature, never done any sort of research. Grimston never done any such research. They just don't have anybody of the same caliber or status as the people that we have in the European Committee on Radiation Risk. That is just a fact. Now, if you want to look at websites where we set out our stall, if you like, the best one is a website of the Low Level Radiation Campaign, which is www.llrc.org. But what you have to realise is there is, in fact, an enormous mafia, a kind of conspiracy, that goes right back to the Cold War era to cover up the health effects of ionising radiation. And in 1959, the World Health Organization was constrained into an agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency, both of them agencies of the United Nations. And about that time in '59, doctors were beginning to get worried about the concentrations of strontium in milk and the effect on babies and leukemia. The leukemia rates were going up. And in order to stop the doctors whistleblowing or doing research or whatever it was, the UN set up this agreement with the IAEA and the WHO, and that agreement is still in force. And that's the reason why the WHO didn't do anything after Chernobyl. And there's still this enormous cover-up of the health effects of low-level radiation controlled by the nuclear industry. People say, oh, I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but actually this is a real one. There is a conspiracy to cover up the health effects of low-level radiation, because it is so monstrous.